Okay, let's take a look at how we can display some data in both Excel and Google Sheets. This is one of the places where the two software packages differ substantially in basically the menus and kind of the clicking pattern that you have to go through to get a similar chart out of each. You know, as far as computations are concerned, they're identical, but when we have to do these graphical displays, it's a bit different for each. So I'm going to show you how to do it in both. So let's say you've got a set of data, you know, a typical type of question. You need to highlight your data set, copy and paste it into your spreadsheet of choice, right? I'm going to go ahead and put it here in a Google Sheets one, but you know, you could just as easily in Excel. All right, now in this question that we had, we're trying to come up with classes, right? So class widths. So we're basically going to put our kind of lump our data into categories, into ranges, you know, all the numbers from this to this, and then the numbers from the next kind of range of numbers, and so on and so forth, and then count up how many there are in each. And this is a pretty common thing that we do when we have data sets that have kind of a lot of variability. If we look at all these numbers, there's probably no mode at all. They're just all show up once. So if you just did frequency, you just have a bunch of ones, and that's just kind of stupid. So we put them in categories in these groups. And in order to do that, first thing we have to do is we have to sort it, right? We have to, you know, sort it from smallest to biggest. So highlight the column that has your data, go to sort your range, and then sort your range, your column F from A to Z. It's that simple. So there's my data sorted. Now, if this was in Excel, so I've got my data in Excel instead, and I want to sort it here, pretty similar. Click on Data, and then I can come over here and I can just click this little A to Z, which is like a preset sorts from A to Z. Now, if you have things in columns that are directly next to it, it's going to ask you if it wants to sort everything all together. So as long as you put your data separate from everything else, you see how mine's got, you know, blank columns on each side, then Excel and Google Sheets knows that you want to basically work with just that data, and you're going to ignore everything else on the page, because I have other stuff on the page from previous work. Okay, so now, oh, you'll notice that the one up here is not the smallest number, and that's because when I sort from smallest to biggest, it can have a default where it thinks the top row is a header, meaning a title. So if you take that off and then do it again, and then of course, what sort of thing looks like a number as a number? Yes, right? Now it puts the smallest one up there, and it's sorted everything down because it no longer thinks that first cell is a label. So just pay attention to that. If you have words on the first one, then you have to tell it to, you know, treat it as a label. And if you don't have words in the first one, the first cell is data, then you have to tell it, hey, treat this as data and not a label. Okay, so in either case, we now have our data sorted. So the next thing we need to do is kind of figure out our starting and ending points, and you know, how many classes we're going to have, and all that fun stuff. Well, we can see just from looking at our data, right, that this is the minimum, right? So we've got a minimum of 22529, and then we have a maximum down here of 60568. So if we simply just go equals max minus min, there's our overall range. We can do it that way. But you could also do, you know, if you had a really big data set, you could do equals min or equals max, and then find the two mins and maxes, and then do the difference between those two cells, right? It's pretty easy when they're sorted, and we've only got like 30 pieces of data. We can just find them. But anyways, we have a range, we have a min, we have a max. So that kind of dictates where these groups, these classes, are going to start and end. Well, sometimes we have some guidance. So in this question, it tells us that we want 7 classes, right? So if we take this range and go, we're going to equal this range and divide it by 7, and we get this number. So that's how big that's like the width of each class that would need to be in order to span the entire set of data. Now, here's a weird thing. We always have to round this up, because if we round down, when you add up all of those classes, it won't be wide enough to span all of your data. So if your number comes out, like let's say we just happen to have a range of our data that was perfectly divisible by 7. So this number came out to exactly 5,434. We would still have to round that up one more to 5,435. And the reason why we have to do that is because our starting class that's going to capture our smallest pieces of data always has to be a little bit smaller than our smallest number. So it has to be smaller than 22,529. And if that's the case, and we left everything with that exact number, when we got to the top, the upper class wouldn't be big enough to capture the last piece of data. So you'll notice here that the first number they want us to start with is 22528.5, right? 22528.5. They basically just took the minimum, took a half away from it, right? Subtracted a half from it, and that gave us our starting point. The idea is if you had a data value that was 22,528.5 or bigger, it would round up, and go into that class. So that's the idea. But in any case, we need to round this up to 5,435. That's going to become our class size. So 22528.5. That's our starting bit. This number is going to equal this number plus the 5,435. And that now gives us the upper bound of our first class. As you can see, if we click on here, there's that number, 27963.5. How did I mess that up? Well, duh, I messed it up because I typed in 38 instead of 28. It might have been safer if I let this equal this number minus 0.5, and then I wouldn't have messed it up. Okay, but you see how that works. That's how we calculated our class width and how we went about getting those numbers. And then you'll notice the next class width starts where that one finished, right? So this was the upper bound, and this is the lower bound, and then the next upper bound, make this wider, maybe you can see it better. Nope, that didn't help, unfortunately. The next upper bound will just be adding this same 5435. So that's where that one comes from. So the nice thing about Excel or Google Sheets is it does this repetitive process. So this cell is going to equal the one that's above and to the right. And then if I take this and drag it down, you'll see that it's just added the same amount to the cell to its left. It's all positional. So now if I grab these and drag, I can do this all day long until I get as many classes as I need, right? And in this case, we only need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The rest of this is useless because, as you can see, the largest number we had was 60568, and here's 60573. So we're already big enough to capture the maximum data value in our data set. So that's how we can find our classes really easily and then fill those all in. Frequencies, well, there's really, I mean, you can calculate frequencies by using these if functions in Excel and Google Sheets, where it will count the number of things that satisfy a certain condition, like they have to be between these two numbers and so on and so forth. But it's really just so much easier to just sort your data and then just come through and count, right? I've got one value in this range. And then the next one isn't until 40,000. So there's going to be none in here. And then we can finally start counting up in this range and so on and so forth. So you can just kind of go through and count how many go into each spot. All right, so that's frequency. And then relative frequency is just frequency divided by how many things you have. So for instance, I'll use this data set over here that I've already got from a previous example. I had one data value in the 220 to 239 millimeter length, right? And then 16 in the 240 to 259 millimeter range. Now, technically, this lower bound should have been like 239.5 kind of thing, or even 239. And then you just have to know that, you know, if it's 239, which one does it go into? When there's a gap here between 239 and 240, you go, well, what happens if I have a 239.1? Does it round down into this one or up into that one? So sometimes you need to be, I would say, a little bit better with your descriptors than the way this one is set up. There's a little bit of uncertainty as to what the cutoff is. Usually we make the cutoff kind of the 0.5. So if it was 239.5, it would round up to 240. And if it was less than that, it would round down. So we kind of just let the rules of rounding dictate unless we're told otherwise. So that's kind of the standard when you don't have something like this where the upper bound and lower bound match. Any case, here's our frequencies. If we highlight all of them down here, it will give us a count of how many things we have, but it'll also give us a sum of the numbers of 300. And that works the same way in both Google Sheets and Excel, that there's things down here. So for instance, if we look at the Google Sheet example, and we highlight those cells, over here you can see sum of 300. And instead of giving us three different things like it does in Excel, we just have to choose which one we want to see. So that would be the average, that would be the min, that'd be the max, that'd be the number of things, right? 7 of them, and that's the sum of all of them. And if you need other bits of information, you just have to use other functions. So we know that there's 300 total numbers. So all we have to do is take each of these frequencies and divide by 300. And that's what we have written here, is we have A15 divided by $22. What the hell is that? Well, I could just type in 300 since I want the same thing. But if I want this set up so that I can put a different set of data in here later and everything will reset, well, what happens if this sum isn't 300? I don't want these numbers all to be divisible by 300. I want it to be divisible by the new sum. And the sum is here in A22. So that's why I'm dividing by A22 with this little dollar sign there. The dollar sign basically just holds the 22 constant, right? So cells are always designated by their row and their column. So A is the row and A is the column and 22 is the row. If you put a dollar sign in front of either of those designations, it tells Excel to hold that position constant. Because when you drag a function, as we saw in the previous example, as I dragged these cells down, it repeated the process of this number is always the number left of it plus 5435, and then this number is always equal to the number that's one above and one over. If we didn't want that pattern to hold, then we have to put dollar signs in there, and it no longer does the positional stuff. And it's a conversation for another time, but in any case, when you drag it down, you get these relative frequencies, and now you have relative frequencies. And you can go on and on from there. All right, so let's get back to graphing, because that's what this video is really more about, is how we graph these things. Well, in Excel, If you want to make graphs, you pretty much need the data next to each other. You can graph data that's in two columns that aren't next to each other, but it's just a pain in the butt. It's much easier if all of your data is in one place, because then you just highlight the entire table of data, and then all you have to do is come up to Insert, and then over here, this is in Excel, by the way, go into Charts, and you have different types of charts to choose from, right? And you can choose just a regular 2D, and there it is. So there's the spread of my data, right? Along the bottom is the first column of data, and then the bars are made up from the second as if they were numerical values. And then it labels everything based on the labels that it saw here. It's that simple. And then you can go up here and you can mess around with how it looks by taking different forms, and then of course you can click on it and change all sorts of things inside. And again, you can go down a rabbit hole later if you want. For Google Sheets, it's relatively just as simple. Highlight your data, go to Insert, go to Chart, click on Chart, and it'll come over here and it'll kind of default to what it thinks is the best chart for the kind of data you have. And you can see that it put basically the exact same thing on the page that we had in Excel. But if it just chose something you didn't like, if you click over here, you can then change the chart. You know, maybe you want it to go sideways, maybe you wanted a pie chart, right? Maybe you wanted a line graph, but it really wouldn't work with this data. It kind of does. But in any case, that's how easy it is to display data in Google Sheets and Excel.